Hey, book lovers. Welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie Dodrell, and today I'm going to talk to you about the books I've been reading recently. I've read some brand new and upcoming thrillers, I've read some cozy mysteries, and I read one fantasy book. I even had my very first five-star read of 2025. So I'm excited to tell you about that one, but you'll have to wait because I'm going to organize these from the books that I liked the least going up to the books that I liked the best. As always, you can find links to all the books that I talk about in the description box. If you click on that link to buy the book, then I'll get a small percentage of the proceeds at no extra cost to you. That's a way that you can support my channel if you're interested in any of these books. So let's go ahead and get started. So, the first book that I'll tell you about is Once Upon a Snowy Night by Kathy Daly. This is book 6 in the Bookstore at Holiday Bay series. So, this book is about a woman named Lou, and Lou owns a bookstore. But in this book, she has been invited to a writer's retreat, or she's helping to host the writer's retreat at this sort of isolated motel. It's kind of up in the mountains. And so she goes up there and she's helping her friend Abby run this retreat. And so there are a lot of mystery writers who are there. And while they're there, there's a huge blizzard. They get snowed in, and one of the authors gets murdered. So this sounded right up my alley. You know, it's January. I like to read books that are set in cold, snowy conditions. They're snowed in, you know, somebody gets murdered. And of course I love books about writers. But this book just fell flat to me. It may have been because I did start on book 6 in the series. Usually I don't have trouble doing that in a cozy mystery series, but maybe I would have enjoyed this one better if I knew the characters better. But I felt like none of the characters really got a proper character arc. I didn't see any kind of growth. It was just like, here we are, this is what we're doing. The murder was not very exciting to me. The blizzard was not very exciting to me. I didn't find any of the writer characters interesting. Just nobody seemed that real. They seemed pretty flat to me. So this book got 2 stars from me. It was very short. I read it quickly. You know, I didn't hate it, but it just wasn't that enjoyable to me. There was also this weird subplot where the main character Lou called her boyfriend back in the town where she lives, and he told her this long story about some kind of crime that was going on in the town that he and some other guy were solving. And I was like, why is this even part of the book? Like, the story was ongoing. Every time she called him, he'd tell her more of it. And it was just not interesting to me. So, 2 stars, not a great book, but maybe it would be better if I'd read the others in the series. Next, I want to tell you about The Last Trip by Kirsten Modglin. This was another 2 star read for me. So I've compared Kirsten Modglin before. Reading a Kirsten Modglin book is like eating a really big piece of chocolate cake. Like, when I start the book, I just can't put it down. It's very compelling. I want to find out what happens. And so I read these books very quickly. But then, much like if you eat a big piece of chocolate cake too quickly, I kind of just feel sick at the end of it. So, this book is about a couple named Calvin and Sadie. We get chapters from both of their points of view. And Sadie is about to have a baby. She's maybe like 3 or 4 weeks away from her due date. And they're going on a last trip, like a baby moon, before the baby gets here. And so they're going to this cabin up in the mountains. But before they leave, they get some shocking news. So they're already kind of reeling from that. And then they go up to this cabin in the mountains, and the homeowners show up, and the homeowners are just really weird. They keep showing up. They do some odd things. It makes Sadie very uncomfortable. And then more crazy revelations ensue that I can't really tell you without spoiling things. But this book was very twisty. It also had some really creepy parts of it, like some parts that I was genuinely like scared when I was reading it, you know, which is good. But then the twist at the end just I just didn't like it. And I don't know, that's really all that I can say about it. It made me feel just kind of sick by the time I was done with the book. So again, I read it quickly. It was interesting, compelling, but didn't really like it overall. All right, next we're moving into 3-star territory with Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. So, this book just came out. It has been getting a lot of buzz. People are really excited about this. Alice Feeney is known as the Queen of Twist. I've read Rock, Paper, Scissors by her, and it had a great twist in it. I tried to read Daisy Darker and didn't like that and didn't finish it. So I read Beautiful Ugly. It has a great premise. It's about an author named Grady Green. And Grady he's just gotten great news. He found out that his book is on the New York Times bestseller list, and he calls his wife to tell his wife about it. And literally, while he's on the phone with his wife, she sees something in the road. She gets out of her car to investigate, and then she disappears. And he goes to the place where she called him from. He finds her car. Her coat is found, but no one ever finds his wife herself. And so Grady is, distraught by this. And so a year passes by. He's not able to write. His life is just kind of spiraling downward. So his agent tells him about this cabin on this very remote Scottish island where he can go and he can stay in this cabin, and maybe he can sort of pull his life back together and be able to write again. So he goes to this remote Scottish island, and he starts thinking that he sees his wife. He'll just kind of catch glimpses. And then other strange things happen. I can't tell you anything else about it. But I was really intrigued by the premise of this book. I love books that are about writers. I love books that are set on remote islands. So I was very excited to read this. I read this book very quickly. It was very compelling. I was totally just mystified throughout the book. Like, I couldn't figure out what was going to happen, like how all of these mysteries were going to be resolved. And the way that they were resolved definitely shocked me. The ending was definitely shocking. I don't know if I really liked the ending that much though. And so you'll have to read it to find out. So I do recommend this book. It's not one of my favorite books that I've ever read, but it does have a shocking twist and it will keep you interested the whole time. So my next 3-star read was You Are Fatally Invited by Ande Pliego. I read an arc of this book, but by the time you're watching this video, it will be published. So this book is about this mysterious author named J.R. Allister, who invites 6 writers to a retreat on his private island. And there's an event planner named Mila who is helping to make things run smoothly. But it turns out that J.R. Allister has some ulterior motives, and Mila also has some ulterior motives. So the writers come to this retreat and they're expecting this week of like writing ideas and also some games that are related to mystery novels or to like different tropes that you might find in thrillers. And so they're excited about that, but what they find is that J.R. Allister has kind of some very sinister motives. He's mysterious. None of them know what he looks like. They haven't actually met him, and you don't know who J.R. Allister is. And then some of the writers start disappearing and some bodies are found. So I really liked the concept of this. I love the private island trope. That's just so fun to me. And I love books that are about writers, but the elements just never fully came together for me. There were multiple points of view, and I just never felt fully invested in any of the characters. The book was also a lot darker than I expected. Like, some of the deaths were pretty gruesome. So, know that going in. So, I didn't dislike this book, but I didn't love it either. So, it's a 3-star thriller for me. And my last 3-star book is Kills Well with Others by Deanna Rayburn. I read an arc of this book and it's being published on March 4th. So, this book is the sequel to Killers of a Certain Age. I loved Killers of a Certain Age. It was in my top 10 for 2023. So, I was really excited about Kills Well with Others. And it was a good book. It had a lot of the same elements that I enjoyed from the first book. It's about these 4 female assassins in their 60s, and they are called back into action by the agency that they work for, which is just called the Museum. It's very mysterious, but they conduct high profile assassins of bad guys. Like, they kill bad guys. So it's really cool to read about these women, and it has some really funny aspects of, they're doing these like stone cold killer things, but then they're also talking about, oh, my back hurts, or oh, like there's a lot of jokes about menopause, which are really funny. So it's a very funny book. They travel the globe, which is cool. Like, they cross the Atlantic on the Queen Mary, I think is the name of the ship. They end up in Venice. They end up on a train in some country. I can't even remember where they are. So they go all over the place, and that's fun. The descriptions of all those different places are fun. What I really felt, though, was that this book was good, but it was not as good as the first one. Like, it was funny, but not quite as funny as the first one. The adventures were cool, but not quite as cool as they were in the first one. So I enjoyed it, just not quite as much as the first. I did feel like the book dragged in a few areas, which I never felt with the first one. Especially in this book, there were a lot of flashbacks to when the women were younger, when they were working at the museum, like flashbacks to the late 70s, early 80s, and the 90s, and those parts just really dragged for me. Like, some of those subplots were just not that interesting, and I couldn't really figure out how some of them related to the larger plot of the book. So I enjoyed this book, just not quite as well as the first one. So my next 4-star thriller was The Crash by Freda McFadden. So the last book I read or tried to read by Freda McFadden was The Teacher, and I hated that one. I didn't finish it, but I did sort of skip around to the end. I read some spoilers, and it was just a totally icky book. So, I kind of thought I might be through with Freda McFadden after that book. But The Crash had a really intriguing premise that I thought I would like. And so I decided to give it a shot, and I'm glad I did. I really liked The Crash. So it's about a woman named Tegan. She is 8 months pregnant, and she has got a lot of not so good things going on in her life. So she loads up her car, and she is going to visit her brother, just to stay with him for a while, just to try to get her life back on track a little bit and get some help from him. But as she's driving to where her brother lives, she gets caught in a blizzard. And then she ends up wrecking her car. She's injured, like her ankle is broken. She is trapped in her car. And so this man shows up, and he helps her, and he takes her to his house, his cabin. His wife is there. The wife is a trained nurse. And so these people are helping Tegan, but you're wondering, and Tegan is wondering throughout, is there something weird about this couple? Are they really helping her, or do they have some ulterior motives? And so that's what this book is about. So it's very good. I loved the blizzard aspect. I loved the sort of trapped aspect where, she's sort of trapped in this cabin. They're snowed in, and Tegan is pretty much helpless. She can't walk, and she's 8 months pregnant. And so, she's trying to fight for herself as well as for her unborn child. We get multiple points of view in this novel. We get Tegan's point of view. We get the wife's point of view, and I believe there are some other points of view that we get as well. So it was really good, really exciting. If you liked Never Lie by Freda McFadden, I think you'll probably like this one. It sort of reminded me of that one, just with the snowy aspect, and I don't know. It was just, I really liked Never Lie, and I also really liked this one. So I definitely recommend The Crash. So, my next 4-star read, switching gears a little bit into fantasy territory, and that was The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis. I read this book with Sarah. We've been going through the Narnia series, and this was the book that we were on, and we finished it just recently. So, The Horse and His Boy is kind of different from the other Narnia books because it's not really about any of the Pevensey children. Well, they are in it, but they're not the main characters. It's set in the golden age of Narnia when Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy are the kings and queens of Narnia, but it's about a boy named Shasta who lives in the country of Calor, and he is running away, and he has a talking horse named Bree. And so they're trying to run away because Shasta has a cruel master. Shasta's a slave, and Bree also wants to get back to Narnia, where he's from, because he's a Narnian talking horse. So they end up meeting with another talking horse and a girl. I can't remember her name. And so they are running away to Narnia, but they uncover a plot against Narnia. And so they're trying to figure out how to stop this plot from happening. So it's very exciting. I enjoyed it a lot. Sarah really enjoyed it. So this was a good addition to the Narnia series. I had read it before, and I enjoyed it just as much this time on my reread. So 4 stars. All right, are you ready for it? It's finally time for my first 5-star read of 2025. And that was Schooled in Murder by Victoria Gilbert. So this is the first book in a brand new series called the Campus Sleuth Mysteries. It is about a woman named Jen Dalton, who is a professor at Clarion University in Virginia. She's also a mystery writer. And in this book, another professor at her college is killed. One of her students is suspected of committing the murder. And so Jen starts investigating. She has some other friends who help her, like a cafeteria worker and a librarian and the school psychologist. So I just really enjoyed this book. For one thing, I felt like I had so much in common with the main character because she is an English teacher and she's also the writing center director at her school, which is my job. It was really funny to me because her writing center is down in the basement of the library, and she refers to it as the dungeon sometimes because it's this windowless room. And my writing center used to be like that. It's moved to a new location now, but it was just so relatable to me. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I always like books that are about writers. I felt like the mystery in this book was just really good. It was really compelling. The book was exciting and it was funny, and I just really enjoyed it, and I'm so excited to read more books in this Campus Sleuth series. I hope that the author writes them quickly. All right, so that's it. Those are the books that I've been reading recently. Please comment if you've read any of these books. Let me know what you think, or let me know what you've been reading. Just give me some recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. If you like book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go call your mom while I read.